That's unconditional faith. And, if you go back to a lot of the premise we've talked about, Napoleon Hill, if you can conceive it, if you can believe it, then you can achieve it. Belief. It's not, I believe it when I have all these things to prove it. It's unconditional faith. And for me, the last several years, ever since I came up with that 4 steps, that has been something I've written down so many times. Like, where am I being challenged to develop unconditional faith?
So here's the big question. How do everyday people like us who didn't grow up wealthy and were not taught how to be wealthy in school, how are we supposed to learn to think, invest, and grow wealth like the top 1% without compromising our ethics and our values? My name is Jeremy Whaley. That was my big question. This podcast will give you the answers. You're listening to Think Rich Radio.
And welcome, everybody, to another episode of Think Rich Radio, episode number 14. Nelson, that means we have completed 2 weeks as of today. And I'm going to go ahead and tease to our audience. Sometime in the next couple of days here, I'm going to start beta trying out some new technology that I think is going to step it up even more. But I'm really excited. Nelson, I think the feedback has been great. I've heard wonderful stories. What kind of stories have you heard from our listeners?
I'm so lucky. People have reached out via text. They've called me and said, "Hey, I'm watching the videos. I'm avidly watching, and I'm taking notes, or I'm writing some of my journaling that I'm starting to do, or I'm looking a little more in the mirror and saying, what changes might I need to make in my life, or how is it that I can impact my life or my story?" So these things are huge, brother. It makes me super proud of what we're doing. And like I said a moment ago before you pushed record, we have a lot to do, Jeremy, you and I, a lot to do. And what I can promise anyone who's taken the time to listen to us or watch us is that we're going to be here 7 days a week for a long, long, long time until we get to the goal that you made us, brother, which is 3.3 million.
I want to impact 3.3 million people in America. My ultimate goal, my BHAG, my big, hairy, audacious goal, help 3.3 million people be completely financially free, be part of the top 1%, grow the top 1% to the top 2%.
I love that. And I'll tell you, we have to write that down somewhere because it's that meaningful, right? And like you and I have spoken about too many times, unless we write it down, it isn't real, right? And the whole writing it down, it came from ritual, from write, R-I-T-E. And so it falls on us to do so, right?
It does. And, just talking about where we're at and the fact we get to be here, I was just thinking as you were speaking a second ago, I feel so grateful to be here. I'm reminded of a friend whose sister was going through brain surgery. She had brain tumors. And she went through over a 2 or 3 year period, I don't know, like 35 surgeries, something absurd. And he told this great story about how in the middle of that, one of the cool things that would happen is they would meet people in the hospital who were there for the first time for their first brain surgery. And his mom was able to look at these terrified mothers, reach back and say, it's going to be okay. And I feel like, so many people think before they can contribute to the world, before they can influence in any way, they have to have everything together. And that's not it. You can be in the middle. Just imagine you're in this dark tunnel and you don't really know the steps ahead of you, but you can reach back to the person behind you and you can say, it's okay. The next few steps are fine. And sometimes I feel like that's where we are. I've experienced some extraordinary highs in my life, extraordinary lows, but I certainly don't have everything figured out. But what we're trying to do with these conversations is to just reach back and say to the people that are maybe one step behind, it's okay. Let's go the next step together and we're going to figure it out. And that's why we're here. We're here every day for as long as we are. We don't have an end in sight and we don't always have the answers, but we're just seeking. And I think everybody that wants to join us, they should join us.
Jeremy, a couple of days ago, went to the funeral. One of my friends, he lost his son, his 15-year-old son. And it just happened, I believe it was last week. And we're all growing, we're all learning, Jeremy, every one of us. But to witness this friend of mine be so stoic under such an absolutely horrific condition, because I'll admit to you, brother, I don't know what I would do. But but his faith is so profound. He set such an incredible example that he took my breath away, man. And so we're all here to learn. We can all learn from incredible examples everywhere around us. But I was humbled by that. And I thought, wow, I need to have a significantly deeper faith than I already do. So yeah, we're all here learning together, brother. This whole place is a classroom.
Is that what we're talking about today? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I thought you were done.
I'm done. Go ahead, brother.
What are we talking about today? Is it faith? Is that our topic? What are we talking about?
Yeah, listen, man. In fact, I can even call it blind faith, Jeremy. I'll tell you, from the moment that I started just taking steps in the dark, is what I call it, everything changed. Everything changed. There was no reason for me to question anything. You'll never hear me complain about it's too dark, it's too cold, it's raining too much. Never, never, never. If it's raining, great. Let's get out there and jog in the rain. If it's too hot, let's bathe in the sun. My point is this. A lot of times we think we believe proof from our perimeter, from our environment, in order for us to take the next step. We stop and say, I need a sign, Jesus. There's not going to be a sign. When do you start? Right now. When does it make sense to start that company or start losing weight or write down the goals or do it right now? Right now, do it right now. Get it done. And what does it take? Zero. We build it. And when I say blind faith, I mean this, Jeremy. For better or worse, I believe. And it doesn't matter on the circumstances in the day. And if I'm going to have any genuine faith, even in spite of all kinds of harrowing conditions in my perimeter, it's not going to cause me to have any less faith, because if faith isn't contingent on proof.
Right. Faith is the key. If you look at the Bible and you look at the stories throughout the Bible, from the beginning to the end, there's one central theme, and it has very little to do with what you do or how good of a person you are. It has to do with faith. If you have faith, you can accomplish anything. And I mean, we could just talk about that forever. But several years ago, I did another podcast episode. I think it was a Think Rich Radio. I forget. Sometimes they run together. But I called it the 4 levels of faith. Would you like to talk about that? Do you think that'd be interesting?
I think that'd be fascinating. Please, yes.
Blind faith. I used the term unconditional faith. And I like the term unconditional because, you have kids, I have kids. There is absolutely nothing that can remove my love for my kids. I can't explain it. But when I say unconditional love for my kids, nothing will ever remove my love. Sometimes I don't like them as much in the moment. But that love, every parent gets, if they're a decent human being, every parent understands what unconditional love towards a child is.
Absolutely.
So then the question is, what if we apply it to faith? What is faith? And so I came up with 4 levels of faith. And the first level is what I call no faith. And no faith is this. It's the person who says, I will believe it when I see it. I will believe it when I see it, and that's it. Or even if I see evidence, I still don't believe. And that's a terrible way to live. And yet, that's really kind of how our culture indoctrinated us to believe. Like, you hear people say, oh, it's not that I'm not adventurous. I just have to see it to believe it. So, that's what I call no faith. If you have to wait until you have all the evidence to believe it, it's no faith. And that's level 1. Level 2 is what I call conditional faith. And people say, well, when X, Y, Z happens, then I'll believe it. So maybe I don't have to have the evidence of the thing, but if these other events precede the thing, then I can believe it. But that's conditional faith. And guess what? That's not faith. That's still based on something else happening. The third level of faith, which is a little bit more intense, is, well, if somebody else has the evidence, if it worked for Nelson, maybe it will work for me. And I've heard a lot of people say this in business. They'll say, hey, you don't have to have faith. I have enough faith for you. I believe it'll work. It worked for me. I know it'll work for you. But that's third party faith. It's based on somebody else, and you're sharing it. You're saying, because it worked for them, I'll believe it, but I haven't seen any evidence. And those first 3 levels are where I think most of society lives. But the magic shows up in what I call the 4th level, unconditional faith. I believe it even when it doesn't make sense. I believe it even though it's ridiculous. I believe it even though I have no evidence. The way I love a child with unconditional faith Abraham and Sarah believed they would have a child, and 70 some odd years old in the Bible, they have a child. They're past childbearing years, right? That's unconditional faith. And, if you go back to a lot of the premise we've talked about, Napoleon Hill, if you can conceive it, if you can believe it, then you can achieve it. Belief. It's not, I believe it when I have all these things to prove it. It's unconditional faith. And for me, the last several years, ever since I came up with that 4 steps, that has been something I've written down so many times. Like, where am I being challenged to develop unconditional faith? What do you think of that?
I think it's such an essential thing. I wish it's something that we were taught in public school. I think it's something that I wish enough of us knew, because the truth is, faith is belief, like you just said. That's really the definition of it. And to not have any belief whatsoever is to be nihilistic, because we stop caring about everything if there's no meaning behind it. And there's no meaning without faith. Nothing matters after that. All we have then is a house, not a home. All we have then are people we live with, not a family. All we have then are companions, not genuine friendships, right? So it really adds a substance to the idea. It's the oregano and the basil inside of that pasta that you're having, right? It's the secret sauce, so to speak. So without that, brother, we got nothing. And everything requires that. It isn't limited to business or finance. It's everything, right? Even our ability, brother, to go into the day, we have to have profound faith that it's going to be an incredible day. Our expectations must be high. Therefore, our standards are high, right? So they go hand in hand. But the first necessary ingredient is faith.
But Nelson, somebody says to me, Nelson, you don't understand how much I've been through. Nelson, it's been so hard. I failed so many times. I hear that from so many people. What do you say to that?
You know what? I love people. I love helping people as much as I can. And I know within myself that we're the cause of what happens to us. And I know that's a difficult thing to hear, but I believe that what happens doesn't happen to us. They're self-inflicted situations that we put ourselves in. And I think we draw that onto ourselves. And I'm guilty of that as myself as well. All of us are. But again, Jeremy, nothing happens to us without our permission first. If we put ourselves in certain circumstances, if we make certain decisions or fail to make certain decisions, things are going to happen to us, Jeremy, one way or another. And not acting, by the way, staying neutral is acting. That is making a decision. It's called compliance, right?
Yeah.
So if someone says, I keep failing, I don't know what else to do, you and I have talked about this. We can't continue the same recipe and expect a different result. We can't continue to do what's familiar to us and expect a whole different result. It's just not going to happen. And we tend to solve for the familiar. Yesterday we spoke about how we don't take action or make decisions based on what's best for us. We do what's familiar to us.
Yeah.
And that's why, right?
Yeah, acting in faith requires total uncertainty. It's complete abandonment to uncertainty, which is the opposite of certainty. And our culture has indoctrinated us to solve for certainty. So that's why people are willing to put their money into the bank and earn 1 or 2% a year. That's why people are willing to hand their money over to a so-called financial professional and earn 8% a year and be happy with it, be content, because it's safe, because it solves for certainty. But as one of my good friends used to say, all of our quality of life is in proportion to the amount of uncertainty that we can learn to comfortably handle. Said a little differently, the quality of our life, the quality of our life experiences, the life standards that we live is going to be in proportion to the amount of faith we have. You think that's a fair statement?
It's unbelievably fair. What you're describing is what I call faith in motion, right? Faith in motion means this. If I want to be in some level of health, I have to work out. If I want to have some level of health, I have to be conscious of what I'm eating. If I want to have some level of health, if I drink alcohol, I can't do it daily. If I'm going to have some level of health, I have to get significant sleep, or sufficient sleep, I should say. But no matter what, the same applies for knowledge, finances, business, any area of our lives. If we dedicate time in the morning, in the evenings, on the weekends into whatever it is that we want, we're going to net a result inevitably. We just will. But it takes us to have to do it. So that faith alone requires us to act. We have to act.
Yeah.
That's why you and I are doing this, Jeremy. You and I had this vision of how do we help people? How do we help them transition from a centralized world into a decentralized world? How do we help them while everything changes below our feet? A new financial system, maybe the dollar is here, maybe it's not. And if it is here, it can buy very little. The school systems that are here and that are coming and that are transitioning into, everything's about to change. So we thought, how do we help people through that gap, through that transition? That's why we're doing this. So we're putting our faith in action. That's why we're doing this, right?
I love that. Faith in action. That brings in the activity. And, so many people are conditioned that I have to act, I have to do something. And if we're not doing something, then we don't deserve it. Well, great. If you want to receive something, get yourself in action. I think that's great. There's another two words I want to throw out: hope and assumption. There's a Bible verse that comes to my mind that says, hope is the evidence. I'm forgetting it. Hope is the substance of faith. I'm misquoting it a little bit, but it's about right. Do you know which one I'm talking about? You know which one comes to mind here?
I do, and I want you to explain that if you don't mind.
Well, I think I have it backwards. Faith is the substance of hope. I have it backwards. That's it.
Okay.
Faith is the substance of hope. What is hope founded on? It's founded on belief. It's founded on faith. And where I was going with this, and this is why we leave all these imperfections in here. If I wanted to have a perfect recording, we'd go back and I'd fix this. Faith is the substance of hope. What does substance mean? It means it's the thing that goes behind it. It's the foundation. You can't have hope if you don't have faith. But when you look at where our culture is and where we've associated hope, I'm going to throw this out. Most people get excited when they see a possibility. And they say, oh, I hope it's going to work. But if you listen to them, they're going to say, I hope it comes true. I hope it works. I hope it works. It's kind of empty because they don't really have any faith behind it. And I want to challenge people, if you really want to test your mindset with unconditional faith, as you put your faith in action, change your language from I hope it works, change it to assumption. I know it's going to work. That's unconditional faith. Assumption versus hope. What do you think of that thought?
That's how I live my life. I don't hope for anything. As far as I'm concerned, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I don't see it any other way. I don't leave room for anything else, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's what unconditional means. It means there is no other room. And I use the metaphor of love because I think, at least if you're a parent, people understand the idea of unconditional love. Even if they don't personally, if they can't say I have a relationship or I know it, I think conceptually people understand the idea of love without condition. What if we apply that to faith? 100% assumption that it's true. And if something shows up where the evidence would suggest that it's not true, what do? You say it just hasn't happened yet. It just hasn't happened yet. It's still going to happen. That's unconditional faith.
I love the way that you went ahead and brought the analogy up of the love for the children that we have, for our children, how it's absolutely unconditional no matter what happens. That's the quality of unconditional faith we should hold in our hearts for all things. And how different things would be if we expect and anticipate great things to happen, Jeremy. I kid you not. It becomes inevitable. It becomes a must. And I know that sounds ridiculous. And that's why I told you I'm an absolutely foolish optimist. Absolutely foolish. There's no way you could tell me something isn't going to work. I'm going to say, no, let me look at it. It'll work. Let's see what we got to do. We'll make it work. We'll make it work.
I love it. Let me tell you what's going to work. What's happening with you guys over at Delta Chain Labs and where I'm taking Trade Maestro, we've got a lot of lives to change. It's exciting. At Trade Maestro, we're transitioning everything. For the last 17 years, people have been learning how to trade on their own. We're going to keep teaching people that, but we're now offering guidance into making this transition into AI, into decentralization, into automation. And there's a lot of people that are excited about this. So if that describes anybody who's listening, come check it out over at trademaestro.com. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you and Davey and Brandon are doing with Delta Chain? And I have unconditional faith that both of these are going to just take off like a rocket. But go ahead and tell us.
So I'm proudly wearing, Davy Jones just sent me the Delta Chain Labs polo today. So I'll be wearing this out wherever I go, which is very cool.
Tell him I need a Delta baseball hat.
I will tell him, brother. Delta Chain Labs right now, the part we're most excited about is bringing on instructors, Jeremy. Yes, crypto and AI and DeFi and Web3 are all absolutely important things that I think everyone must learn. Everyone should learn. But above and beyond that, we're also going to have a business side where people are going to be able to platform their product or their service or their project. And it's going to be a very wide variety, from real estate, and we're talking residential and commercial, to business, to finance. And under the umbrella of business, it'll be like my buddy Oscar. He's going to bring in his gourmet, organic Mexican food products that he vends in the Southern California marketplace, as how he scaled from zero to bringing homemade farm to table food readily in farmers markets and specialty grocery stores. How does one go from zero to a particular where he's at, which is very successful, to another friend of mine who's got an online service for vending vitamins, and he's proven unbelievably successful regarding that online business. So it'll be a very varied amount of instructors and very varied amount of subject matter that'll be taught. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, that's what we're working on. So we're stoked.
I love it. I see so many things coming together, and we're at this weird intersection of society where, we're going through the transition. It's the regenesis. We talk about we're going through fourth turning into first turning. Right now, we're regenesis. We're like regenerating everything. We're planting the seeds of the next 80 years. And I believe this is the greatest time to be alive. I really do. It's so cool. A lot of uncertainty around us, but man, the future is so bright. It's awesome.
So I love when you a couple of videos ago you were talking about how everything is so cyclical, and this is not a moment to fear. Yeah, there's a ton of uncertainty because we're not familiar with the new rules of this new paradigm. Not already yet, right? Yeah. But that's not reason to fear. Not if we understand that there's a birth, there's a growth, there are cycles, and we just happen to be in this one that's changing dramatically, and I'm excited as you are, brother. I see unbelievable things coming. Great opportunities for sure.
Well, thank you, everybody, to you for listening and for watching. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you haven't liked and subscribed, like and subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family. And Nelson and I will be back tomorrow. Until then, we wish you the best. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.